Assumption College, it's Adam here from Real Schools. Just a quick video to bring you back to the key principles that we discussed in our professional learning day that we held last year. So it seems a long time ago. And so it's worth revisiting because I'm mindful that professional learning can sometimes lose its sting. That we could have a great day, you may have been really inspired on the day, you may have felt really good about the day, you may have made some important decisions on the day, but you haven't had a chance to practice them. So I wanted to bring you back to those key principles so that you've got a chance to hit to 2019. At full pace and with some things that are different as evident within your practice. So can I start by saying Happy New Year? I really hope you have a fantastic year and that you're able to take some of the things that we learned and talked about into your practice and that they can do what I declared that they should do as in your school, which is to help you to be more effective and less stressed. So remember that our partnership is not about additional workload, it's about helping you to do the things that you already need to do with more impact and with less negative impact on your own personal well-being. So that's what it's all about. So okay, restorative practices, what are we trying to do? First thing we're trying to do is to remember that this is about how we underpin our culture. Culture being a behavioural set. So what we're trying to do is within that behavioural set get clear about those two piles of behaviours that I talked about that build that set. They're the behaviours that we encourage and they're also the behaviours that we tolerate. And what Restorative Practices does is sits as the methodology, the repeatable methodology of you being able to tackle the behaviours in the tolerate pile and bring them over one at a time into the encourage pile. Positive, relational, strong school cultures are those with more behaviours that they encourage than those that they tolerate. It's a pretty simple equation, isn't it, when you think about it? And the fundamental belief or the tenet of restorative practices that we explored when we got together was this notion of harm and relationships. So you may remember me saying that if you're looking for a 7-second moment out of the day, that if you're taking nothing more away from the day than 7 seconds, it should be that restorative practices is about harm and relationships. Whenever we get conflict, whenever we get tension, because we're going to, in a human system such as a school, particularly a school community where you have some of your students who live on site and many who come from far away as well to be a part of your community. The way that we tackle the inevitable conflict and tension in our school community is an incredibly important thing to get clear about. So the way we tackle it is we say, we explore the harm, we work out what the damage is, we work out what the mess is that's been made, and then we do what's required in terms of relationships, in terms of affect, in terms of feeling, to fix it up. And then we move on. And importantly, what happens when we move on, when we take action, is we get to thank and congratulate students for doing the right thing, and we get to quite actively move away from that experience of being in shame. And we spoke about the really important affect of shame and the way that it underpins this thinking of working restoratively. So that's kind of the big picture. And then what we did was we got into sort of the granular and more practical aspects of restorative practices. First of all, it was the language, wasn't it? So I guess if you can remember that continuum that we worked on from informal to formal, and how genuinely restorative schools have a strong focus on the informal. And that's about, so if I can touch briefly on effective language and on effective interactions there. So effective language is about saying what you normally say but throw in a feelings word. And it sounds a little bit lame and a little bit inconsequential and it won't matter if I don't do it. It sounds also like it's possibly the easiest way to get started with restorative practices, but it also sounds like the first thing you'll forget. So I really want you to make a conscious decision here about contributing to your school culture positively by impacting your language. You may remember that we spoke about that when it comes to culture, and this is the culture of whether it's an Indigenous community, the culture of a country, the culture of a community, that language is both an input and an output. So to get the culture you're looking for, you've got to choose the right words. And one of the ways to tell if your culture is developing is to listen to the words that are spoken by the people that are within that culture. When it comes to a school, the people with the greatest influence to move first are you, the staff. So if we choose to use words differently, if we choose, you might remember the example of a piece of rubbish on the ground. If you choose to say, disappoints me to see you do that, put it in the bin, rather than pick that up. If you choose to say, I'm really impressed with the quality of your work, rather than good boy, then what you do is start to emphasize to your students with outrageous and monotonous regularity that their behaviour impacts others positively and negatively. And they learn to please you, which means that your environment becomes a much more pleasant place to be in, because the students are learning that there are certain behaviours that you're likely to reward verbally, and they're the ones that we should be demonstrating. So it's really fantastic if you can make that commitment to effective language. The next step on that continuum was the one around effective interactions, and that's where we start to understand the different philosophy in working restoratively than, say, working through the adversarial system. So working restoratively, what we do is we take, low-level behaviour instances that perhaps didn't work by just using the disappointed word or something similar. We say we need to go past, present, future as quickly as we possibly can. So whether it's with one student, with a small group, if something goes wrong, what we try to do is to go past, present, future. You can use the question cards to help you and to support you with that. But the truth is you don't need them. The questions have a function, and it's just to go past, present, future. And if you do that without asking questions without asking the questions on the cards, then I say you've done a great job. Well done. You're a restorative practitioner. It's fantastic. The final thing that I'd like to mention to you today in this video is the importance of being a reflective practitioner. And you may remember me talking to the notion that I challenge a lot of the teachers that I work with, that you are not a reflective practitioner if you reflect on nothing. If all you do is go, how good was I, or how bad was I, and we give ourselves a score and move on, nothing really changes. Reflection's about action, and that means reflecting on a model. And for us, that's those operating domains of firm and fair, and then how does that look in terms of to, with, for, not. And I think that if you think about restorative circles, and we talked a little bit on the training day about how you can get them going for 5 different purposes: for check-ins, for check-outs, for preparation, for response, and also for learning. That's where it really starts to impact the instructional model. You start to say, well, okay, does it feel like I'm practicing with too much firmness or too much fairness, or have I got a good balance going there? You might feel, for instance, that if you stand at the front of the room with the students in rows and you're trying to sort of force them to be educated, then we're doing education to the students, where as if we can move away from that and use circles wherever possible, it certainly to me feels like I'm doing education with the students, and that feels good. It feels good because that means that my practice has a direct line drawable from the way that I'm behaving to my purpose, to what I believe about working with young people and helping them to be able to progress through learning. So it's kind of big, kind of important stuff, and I hope that this video helps you to just refocus so that 2019 is a year that is different from the others, that doesn't blend into them. That what we want to remember is that restorative practice is about culture. It's about harm and relationships. Beneath that, it's about impacting through language. It's about going past, present, future, and it's about reflecting on how firm and fair I have been as an educator. I can't wait to come up and see you all and to work in your classrooms with you and to get some traction here. You will help me to help you by getting going and giving it a go yourself. You ain't going to break anybody. In fact, I think you'll do some really remarkable stuff along the trip if you afford yourself some freedom, afford yourself some license, and take full creative responsibility for doing restoratively well in your own practice, in your own classrooms, in your own world. Have a great time with it. Enjoy the start of 2019, and I'll see you all really soon.